Welcome to Zen and the Art of Real Estate Investing. What if you could learn from experienced real estate investors, find out what got them to where they are now, get insight into their daily habits, and take these insights to inspire your own growth? Each week, Jonathan Green shares an in-depth look at the mindful approach to real estate investing. Jonathan is a real estate investor, advisor, and coach, as well as the founder of Streamlined Properties and the team leader of Streamlined Properties on Market, brokered by eXp Realty. Whether you are looking to start from scratch, get to the next level, or just a straightforward and honest approach to real estate investing, Jonathan seeks to provide a free mentorship program you can take with you anywhere. Now, here's Jonathan.
Welcome back to another week of Zen and the Art of Real Estate Investing. I've got a great show for you. Before that, I just want to remind you, 10-minute clips on my YouTube channel at Jonathan Green RE. That gives you a great way to put the face to the name, see us talking, and then go ahead listening to podcasts in your car, while you're working out, while you're taking a walk. All of those things are great. While you're at it, if you could leave us a 5-star review, that would greatly help us scale up the charts, because that's what we're trying to do with your help. We're now twice a week. This week, we have Alex Jarbo. He's going to talk to you about his journey as a veteran, coming home and figuring out short-term rental experiences. This is a great show. Stay tuned right now. This is episode 74 of Zen and the Art of Real Estate Investing with my guest, Alex Jarbo. Alex is a short-term rental developer and manager, host of the YouTube channel Alex Builds, and the founder of Sargon Investments. Alex, welcome to the show.
Oh, thanks for having me on, man.
Yeah, I'm excited to talk to you, get into some short-term rentals. But before we get there, what is your first memory of your interest in real estate?
My first memory came from just, while I was still in the Marine Corps my last year, I just started picking up a lot of just general business books and gravitated originally towards the beginner, bigger pockets books, some of the original BP books. So that's like my first memory of like learning about real estate. My first aha moment with real estate came from reading a book called Crushing It by Brian Murphy and just understanding Murray, sorry. That first aha moment with I specifically remember where I was at when I was reading that book and understanding like the correlation between cap rates and income and value. That was a huge aha moment for me in real estate.
Did you find that being in the military, that over the years, it's become much more important for military personnel to figure out kind of like, hey, what other things am I going to do when I get home? Was this part of what you were trying to do while you were still out there?
Yeah. It was my last year was figuring out. I joined a flipping mentorship when I was still in, and then that flipping mentorship is like what snowballed into like me getting into short-term rentals, because the gentleman that was in charge of that flipping mentorship, all of his long-term holds were in vacation rentals. This is back in like 2015, 16.
Yeah.
I don't really talk about my transition too much, but like the biggest thing that I learned from the military compared to like going out and practically doing everything on your own is that I think a lot of service members get like, we're so used to a structure, and it's like we want like some sort of freedom coming out of the structure. And sometimes that's not necessarily a good thing, because it's like if you're an entrepreneur, you're making your own schedule. And it's like you need to hold yourself accountable. I mean, if you have a business partner, that's one thing. But that was the biggest thing I struggled with coming out of the military was like, okay, now I have all the time in the world. What do I do? Because it was almost like overwhelming.
We've had several veterans on the show who were looking into it while either still deployed or in the service. And it's interesting because the transition's important, because you do, like you're saying, you go from like busy and like really, really things that you have to do all the time to
a lot of times someone's creating your own schedule too. So it's like you're not even thinking about it at the time.
Yeah. But were there other people like around you that were also interested? Because I feel like in the last 10 years, it's become really popular for veterans because you have a little bit of downtime depending on where you are and where you're stationed to kind of read up on something. And investing is a great thing to start to get into, because then you can start trying to deploy some stuff before you get back.
In my peer group, no, I was a Marine Corps infantryman by trade, and then I was stationed at Marine Barracks, Washington, part of the Honor Guard there. So our tempo was pretty aggressive. Yeah. And I would honestly, those books were, it was maybe 20 or 30 minutes of downtime just reading on my phone, like off of like the Kindle app and whatnot.
Yeah.
But what I realized coming out was like, I just did the Active Duty Passive Income podcast, and shout out to Kevin. there's a massive community of active duty, like people that are just doing the real estate thing while they're still in. Again, my tempo was so crazy that I couldn't even think about doing something like that. Like I talked to some guys that are still in that are like, yeah, I have 3 rentals. I'm like, I didn't even have time to do that. So
yeah, but you started to place it in your head so that you had something to focus on when you got home. There was a plan in place. I think that's important. So when you got back and you knew like, I'm going to ready to start, what did you get started with? What was your focus?
Yeah, so the flipping mentor, I had hopped on a one-on-one call with him because he had mentioned that he was in vacation rentals, and that sort of perked my ears a little bit. I was interested in flipping, but I didn't like the idea of always having to find your next deal. It's like you just put all this work into this one specific property, and now you're going to sell it and go do the same thing. So I didn't go back home. So I'm originally from Detroit, Michigan, and he had taught me how to choose a vacation rental market. There's like 3-4 markets that we had sort of decided on. My fiance at the time, wife now, had also helped me make that decision of where we live now in Asheville, North Carolina. But yeah, I moved here the day I got out of the military, and then I got my broker's license when I got here. So started just helping people buy and sell real estate, did that for a couple of years. And then during those 2 years is when I was looking for a property for myself. And then quickly realized at that time, everything was either way out of my price range or it was in my price range, but it wouldn't have done well as a vacation rental. There was nothing like eye-catching about it or nothing unique. Maybe as a long-term rental, it would have done well for the property I was looking at. Yeah. So my very first real estate project, I did some rental arbitrage deals prior to that. I purchased like $1,000 course online for short-term rentals. Yeah. And my very first real estate project was a ground up development, an 800 square foot A-frame that we own to this day, which apparently, talking to everyone in the Bigger Pockets community, because I write for them, is not a normal thing. But
to start with a ground up build on an A-frame, no, I would agree with them.
Yeah, so we own that one to this day. That one cash flows like crazy. That one turned into building 2 more, and then brought on some investor capital for some military friends that saw what I was doing. And then that slowly snowballed into starting to team up with some funds to bring them deals and manage their deals. And then today we're working on like a $20 million development / acquisition. Total, it's anywhere between whatever month you're looking at it, anywhere between $30 to $35 million worth of vacation rentals just in this market alone.
Awesome. Yeah. So let me split that into 2 parts. One, Asheville. Asheville's a great market. How did you decide on that market? We just had Chris Larson, who's a syndicator, on. He's in Asheville as well.
I need to connect with him. There's a lot of people I've never connected with him. There's a lot of people that have mentioned him. Yeah.
But Asheville's a great community, and I think you were ahead of the curve connecting on it. Obviously, it's been popular, but it still has scale to go.
Yeah, it just the landscape is what it drew me here. I mean, I knew some things about vacation rentals just speaking to that mentor, but I never. It's just gorgeous. That's why we originally came here. And honestly, the plan was to stay here for 5 years, and I've been here for 7. And yeah, it's very relaxing. It's very different than where I grew up. I grew up like in the middle of downtown Detroit, maybe 2-3 miles away from downtown. And then I lived in DC for 4 years, which was, I lived in big cities throughout my 20s. So yeah, it's just a relaxing city to be in. And just the growth that I've seen in the last 7 years has been massive. I mean, it was definitely one of those cities where people gravitated towards during COVID and whatnot.
Yeah. Yeah, I feel like the path of its growth is limited in the right way, meaning it can't grow to be like Austin or Nashville, which is going to be too full. Like there's so much land that is also not going to be developed because that's kind of the charm of the area as well.
Yeah, I mean, I've sat in on these board meetings with like a vacation rental project looking at like multifamily developers, and it's like it's not that the city's against growth by any means. It's just it's mountainous. It's
protection.
People trying to protect it. People trying to build off cliffs and stuff. It's just not going to happen.
Yeah. And so second part, let's get to the A-frame, because I was actually just watching a video earlier from the Airbnb data guy, John Bianchi, and it's the coolness of Airbnbs you were ahead of. A-frames are like, an old type of house that people, I guess, went out of favor for a while. And now as short-term rentals, they're like insane because your short-term stay or even midterm, you don't need a certain type of architecture. It looks cool from the outside, functional on the inside. How did you decide on that as
that
a
came
first
from looking at a
process?
whole bunch of different pictures and like on Instagram, and I still do that to this day.
Yeah.
I save a whole bunch of pictures. I mean, I have a Pinterest board that I shared with my general contractor. It's like, what the heck is this? Yeah, it looked cool at the time. I mean, I think there was one other A-frame in my market when we had built that one, and I was just always, like I said, every single rental I was looking at that was in my price range at that time, I couldn't envision myself staying at those properties that I was looking at.
Mm-hmm.
That is something that, I don't know, I maybe stumbled upon. There's two things that I stumbled upon. One was the uniqueness factor of it that we do to this day with all our other properties. And the other thing is I went rural. Like all my properties are within 15 to 20 minutes of downtown. I did that out of necessity because the land was too expensive for downtown.
Yeah.
But during COVID, that played to our advantage where people left the downtowns and went to the more rural markets. And if you look at most of the vacation rental data that started in October of last year was the first time I saw it, the rural markets outperform the hubs, like the metro markets now.
Yeah.
And so, yeah, the A-frame just came from, I thought it would be really cool to stay in a property like that. And then the strategy behind all that now is like the guest, you want to build a property. This is what I always think about. You want to build a property that a guest would be proud to put on their social media, because once they start sharing it to their friends, they practically become your own little marketer right there, where they're tagging the Instagram accounts and whatnot to like all their other friends. And then it just turns creates this massive flywheel. Like we said, Asheville is a really cool market. This whole Western North Carolina market is really cool, very outdoorsy. But on top of that, we build really cool properties that a guest can just stay at. Like we can talk about it at the end, but the massive community that we're purchasing, the Treehouse community, what we realized was, Asheville is really cool, but like I've spent 10 separate nights up there, and looking around, a lot of the guests don't even leave the property. So it's like, it's a really cool thing to see that, where it's like you're building properties that people just want to relax in, even though the market's really cool.
Yeah.
So, and then that 800 square foot A-frame, that size just came out of necessity, where I couldn't afford to build anything bigger. But now it's like everything that we build is in that 4 to 1,200 square foot range. We have purchased properties that are way, way, way bigger than that fit in the luxury market. Say we have a property that's 5,500 square foot. That's because it's unique in its own way. Historic house built in 1880.
Yeah.
But going back to that first A-frame, it came out of necessity. And then it was just building a property that we would be proud to stay in. And it just ended up being popular for everyone else. So,
yeah, you hit the real key word that I think is, everybody's lamenting the downgrade of Airbnbs, which isn't correct, as we'll talk about in general. I know why they think that. It's because so many people got into the market for the wrong reasons, but it's all about experience now. If you're providing an experience for a short-term rental, you're fine. Don't you agree with me? Yeah,
absolutely. And there's other things we can talk about in terms of that too, like people who got into the market and like the height of it.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, I think like it's an experience-based thing. And like you said, I think during the pandemic, when Airbnbs were hot because people needed to get out of their ridiculous houses that they were stuck in, I don't think that part's going away. The need to get away and relax, which is part of what you said, like all inclusive, meaning like bring your food, don't leave, enjoy the premises and enjoy not having to do, work or anything else.
The other side to it, because you hear about like the Airbnb bust, which unfortunately that came from one of my peers at Bigger Pockets. Then Forbes picked up that term, and then it just went everywhere like late last year. There's definitely been a downturn in the vacation rental market, but the people who have been affected the most outside of, say, like you don't have unique properties, because not everyone can just go build a property tomorrow. But the people that are thriving right now, and the managers that are thriving, the owners that are thriving right now are the people that treat, so like when you own a vacation rental, you're not just an Airbnb. You should stop saying that. Like I own Airbnbs. You're in hospitality.
That's a company.
Yeah, that is a marketing. I look at that like the OTAs, online travel agencies, which are Airbnb, VRBO, and any place that you can list your property. Those should just be looked at as marketing arms to your business. You're in the hospitality industry. You can say you're in the vacation rental industry, but you're in the hospitality. Especially the last couple of years, the lines have really started to blur between hotels and vacation rentals, especially with like Marriott essentially building their own OTA website, like Airbnb, just for higher end stuff. Expedia, Booking.com, like all these properties all these companies have vacation rentals in their in their platforms now. So those should just be looked at as marketing arms to your business, where you're getting on Airbnb, you're getting on VRBO, Booking.com. If you can get your property on Expedia, get it on Expedia, and all the other, even if there's local online travel agencies, I'd recommend building out some sort of direct booking site, but that's like the last step. That's like a little bit more advanced. But it's funny because it's practically gone full circle. Back in the day, you had to pick up a phone before Airbnb, VRBO, and call a manager's office to book a vacation rental. Yeah. It's sort of going back to that with direct bookings. It's going full circle where people are Airbnb, VRBO, the OTAs are always going to be a part of my business. I'm not going to say they're not, but people are looking for almost like alternatives where if they can book directly with the host, they're going to do that. And I mean, the data supports it. What Mark Simpson from Boostly has been doing in this community is massive. For people who don't know, Boostly builds like direct booking websites, and there's a couple of books that he's written on the topic. But that's sort of the shift that I've experienced in the last year is getting on every channel that we can, obviously have a property management software, and then getting people to book directly from us who have stayed with us. So the easiest way to do that, honestly, is a service called StayFi, and it's a little disk that plugs into the back of your router, creates a landing page for your internet. So like imagine you're going to Starbucks, airport, you have to plug your email address in to get access to the internet. Same idea, except you can just brand it to you. And you can do this I think it's like $5 a month after you purchase the device. And then you're able to collect all the guest emails. So like that property that I mentioned, the bigger property, that one can sleep 16 people. Yeah. So we're not getting the email address of the guest that's staying with us. We're getting everyone that's staying at the property. And then we just remarket to them directly through StayFi. StayFi has its own white label, like email marketing product with templates. And we just send seasonal emails to our direct booking site. Yeah. And that way, there's nothing against the terms of service to do that. It's against the terms of service for like Airbnb to try to take them off of the platform when they're initially trying to book with you. But at the end of the day, there's nothing against collecting their contact info after they've had a good stay with you to remarket to them. It's an easy sell after that. If they had a good experience with you, there's a lot of horror stories that come from vacation rentals. So people are a little iffy on that first stay. And if they've had a good stay with you, it's pretty easy to be like, hey, you can save money by just booking with us directly next time.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, we did vacation rentals well before Airbnb existed. We were using VRBO and HomeAway at the time, and it was definitely, like you said, a much different process. But over the years, ours were in the Hamptons, so it was a fully summer market. But it was the same people coming every year. We didn't even really have to put it on a site. It was just like the site was there to catch the times that we're missing, which is what it's great for.
It's like back in the day when you had to bring your own linens to the property.
Yeah. Old school. There's no salt. Like you have nothing.
Silverware, no nothing.
Yeah. But I mean, I think that's again where things have changed and where you can see. I agree with something else that you said, that I do like the major portals for that protective first booking, because there's more vetting. You're gonna be able to see someone who stayed in 20 Airbnbs. Like, okay, great, that's solid. That saves you. But yeah, after that, it's just like, as a real estate agent, you get a lead from Zillow, and then later you get a referral from them. You're not paying Zillow again. You're just being smart and doing good business by following up with your clients. That's it. Those are great tips.
General business practice. Like, say you're selling this water bottle on Facebook and Google. You're capturing the person's info after they purchased the water bottle from you, and then you're remarketing to them through SMS and email and whatnot.
Yeah, but I mean, and also what you're saying is very important for social media now, because I think if you're really good on social and you've done it before, you can create an account that drives a ton of traffic, and you may never need the portals. You still want them. I like it for that first point. But if you're good on Instagram, people are looking at Airbnbs on Instagram. I mean, Getaway House or Getaway Home, whichever one, they crushed it on Instagram. They developed a, direct booking as well. And I think that it's similar to what you can develop, like you're saying, and what you're doing. You have the direct booking available. You have the first thing because you want to be there. But if you have all the platforms and you have a really hot property, you're going to be overloaded. Like, it's a lot for whoever's managing that property.
Yeah, and it just goes back to the whole treating it like a business. I just spoke to the owner of StayFi, genius, like a couple months ago. We haven't implemented this strategy yet, but you can take that email list and then create a lookalike audience with that email list, and then run ads. That's nuts. Yeah. That's absolutely nuts. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, I think there's a lot of things going for short-term rentals that people are missing because they watch the national news and they think it's a bust. But would you agree with me that too many people who don't know what they're doing in short-term rentals got into short-term rentals, and that's part of the problem?
Yeah, absolutely. And I compare it to 2008 and 9. I was too young to invest in that time, but I've studied it this through my MBA, my doctorate, and then just being curious about what happened in 2008 and 9. I compare it to people investing in real estate just for appreciation because everyone else was doing it. That's what I compare to short-term rentals right now.
Yeah.
It's like you don't really you hear the horror stories, right? But you don't. I've talked to a lot of investors that are like, yeah, I purchased 15 homes in a year in 2006, like prior to the crash, that we underwrote them normally. Like they actually did their due diligence on the property and they own them to this day, or maybe they sold them in 2013, 14 and quadrupled their money. You don't hear those stories because that's bad to say that.
Right. Doesn't match the narrative.
Stories. Exactly.
Yeah. And I also, you had that correlation. I always correlate it to the iBuyer market, like in Arizona, where these companies like Open Door and Zillow Offers just bought a crap ton of properties, way more than they should have because they thought they had a different plan. It doesn't work out. Same as hedge funds buying self-storage. The management aspect is different. Hedge funds, they have plenty of money to burn, so it works. But even hedge funds who've got into short-term rentals, you don't understand. Those markets are specific. What you're doing, which I think is really smart, what we'll get into is you're building on them. For Airbnb hosts and owners who have multiple properties, you've solved the problem of overbooking because you're like, oh, that one's not available. I have 16 others in the town. Yeah. Is that what you're working on now, where you can really create other options so you're not missing on bookings?
Oh, absolutely. And it's like all of our properties are not similar to each other. We have anywhere between, like I said, 400 square foot small tiny house cabins all the way to 5,500 square foot like historic houses. So we have log cabins that we've built out, A-frames, obviously, like we said, and now the tree houses. So that happens all the time. The properties that we build now are practically all right next to each other. So like a guest, we pre-approve a guest to come in and book the property, but sometimes another property or another person will just like insta book it. Yeah, and they're like, you have another property? And it's like, yeah, actually there's one right next door to it. If you wanted, here's the listing for it.
Yeah.
So yeah, we've seen a huge spike in that the last like 3 years, ever since we started building and purchasing properties that are right next to each other.
Yeah, but also
you're building your own ecosystem in the market.
Yeah. Exactly. And what you said before about the people coming back, if you have multiple and different styles in one area, they can say like, oh, they stayed in the A-frame, and they're like, oh, crap, look at that log cabin. Next time I'm going to do that. So you're building a row like, hey, we can stay in 6 different properties, same managers, same owners. We know what we're going to get in terms of like the amenities and services, because it is important. I think like original short-term rental, hosts or managers didn't get it. Like a 1-star review is going to kill you. The algorithm's going to put you in the bottom. No one's even going to see it. So, you're focused on the amenities of the property. But I love what you're saying. 400 to 1,200 square foot. I like the big ones too, but like these are very manageable. Less can go wrong. People expect less, and the space is contained, so it can't really get that messy. And that's what people are looking for a lot for the weekends.
Exactly. And from an operations perspective, just fast turnover too, like incredibly fast turnover.
Yeah, that's a fantastic point. The cleaning is something, when we've talked to other short-term hosts and owners on this, cleaning is one of the hardest things to find. So
it's also the most important thing too.
Of course. That's your review is really in the cleaning and what you have in the property. But yeah, you can turn over a 600 square foot. That could be cleaned in an hour, not counting laundry.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, that's a great point.
Hey, this is Jonathan. Thanks for listening to another episode of Zen and the Art of Real Estate Investing. On this brief interlude, I wanted to tell you that we have a mailing list. I actually don't love mailing lists. There's so much. This is not an automated mailing list where you get on a drip campaign. These are written once a month, will eventually be at once a week again by me, direct, and they're not spammy. So if you want to sign up for our mailing list, you can go to bit.ly/streamlined with a D mail. Bit.ly is bit.ly/streamlined mail. See you there.
Well, I mean, what's your goal with this? Let's talk about the new development with all the properties, because I think that's really interesting. Give us a story on that and where you want to go with that.
Yeah, so we're not developing this one. This one my agent brought me, and it's in the middle of development. So we're purchasing it with the owners continuing the construction going into next year. But currently it's 7 units that have gone ultra viral across all social media platforms. I mean, I've been saying anywhere between 40 to 50 million views across TikTok, YouTube, and Instagram, but I'm sure it's even more than that.
Yeah,
that's just the videos I've seen that have gone viral. But this is like the crown jewel when it comes to like the vacation rental market. And in my opinion, it's like the top hospitality investment in the country right now. But it's a mom and pop owner that they just built this beautiful mountainside vacation rental treehouse community. It's tree houses, but it's other type of unique themed properties. Can't necessarily say what kind of theme. Like they're just themed based after like movies and TV shows. I'll get in trouble if I say it over here. But they live right next to the property. Mom and pop built this beautiful community out there. It's going to be 20 units. I'm looking at this. Again, this is the top property in the country. The idea of purchasing a property like this or developing a property like this actually came from when my wife and I had visited Tulum Beach, Mexico. I saw on Tulum Beach, like there were all the resorts there are not like Cancun. Cancun has thousands of units in a resort. These were like anywhere between 12 to like 40 or 50 unit micro resorts. And I was like, we did our honeymoon in the Maldives, and that was like an overwater cabana. I was like, it'd be cool if we put these in the mountains. And then the Tulum, but that was still like 400 or 500 units in a resort. The Tulum Beach idea of like 15 to 50 units that are all unique in their own ways. That's my focus, like this micro resort idea. And we're using this first one as to set the example to be like, it's a way easier conversation with a bank to build these 40, 50 unit communities, say like in the next couple of years, if we already have one that we're managing compared to just starting from scratch. Yeah. So that is where we want to take this idea going forward is one, going multi-platform on this current one and obviously stabilizing it in the next year. And that's going to be the entire focus is just stabilizing before we even get into the bigger stuff. But once it is stabilized is to go, I would love to do something on the West Coast in the desert of like Sedona or like somewhere on the West Coast. Yeah. And then I do have a couple international contacts that have done like international resorts in that 20 to 40 unit range that would probably be the next step right after that. Yeah. Or maybe in tandem. I haven't decided yet. Yeah.
I like the way that you're thinking, though, because these alternative products are just really interesting. I'm invested in both O2 Treehouse and GeoShip, but they're both alternative. Really? Yeah, both very alternative and interesting to me to see where they go. But like, I mean, come on, growing up as kids, we all wanted a treehouse. I mean, who doesn't want a treehouse?
It's not just this pie in the sky idea either. Like these current 7 have been stabilized. Like they have year-to-date numbers that are just out of this world. So it's like I have gotten some kickback. It's like there's a big difference between 20 and 7, but their occupancies are like 95% plus. That it has not dropped below that, like dropped below 93% in a year since before COVID. Even during through
it suits what we were saying before though about experience. These are unique things. You can't find them everywhere. Sure, like you know, if you're going to do vacation rentals in Florida, you're going to get one that sits on the water. Okay, I mean that's fine, and that is good. Yeah. It's good. It's just like you said, you went to the Maldives. You want to be like right over the water in a hut. Yep. I mean, that's what it is. But like the getaway principle of wanting to go in and do tree houses and, you know, these ones, like I've seen a few on Instagram too, or YouTube where it's like, you know, now they have their own lake, you know, and everything is there, like you said, so you don't have to leave. So you can feel like, hey, we're going here. We're going to bring our food and we're good. You know, we're good.
This specific one's 10, 15 minutes away. Grubhub, DoorDash, Instacart, CVS, Walmart delivery, anything that you need, even if you're not like we did a massive film for our investors for 4 days when I flew a couple of crews out that specialize in properties like this. I mean, we were just getting Chipotle and pizza delivered to the property while we were working. So, and it's, like I said, like we were looking around, most of the cars did not leave that property the entire weekend or whatever time we were up there.
Yeah, that's a huge win though to do that research. And I think like we were saying, the people who bought into short-term rental markets and weren't thinking hospitality and experience, they were thinking investment on a not the right scale. They're screwed up. They weren't thinking, hey, can any food get here? Where's the nearest supermarket? You know, is this viable?
Can we get internet here? Like,
right. I mean, these are things that I think, like you said, you touched on something that I talk about both on market and off market is treating it like a business and not a job. Like, cool. If you want to get one investment and you want to do short-term rental and you want to learn how that way, that's awesome. That's a great way to get started. But when you want to turn it up, you have to think like as a full business, and it's clear that you've really thought it out. And it looks like that all started though while you were in the military, just getting started by piecing it together from a couple books just to start.
Yeah, like the .com Secrets books by Russell are very they're very good just overall business books on understanding how to build a list and build a community. The first A-frame, when it was built, StayFi didn't exist. And I was like, it'd be really cool if we did like an email capture or something, maybe if it's like through messaging where we just asked for their email. And then when I found that tool, I mean, I implemented that tool into my property without even having a direct booking site. I mean, we launched our direct booking site this year. So like we were collecting emails for 5-6 years before we even did anything with them. Definitely. Like I read, I think it was just .com and Expert at the time, but the .com Secrets trilogy is just a really good overall business type of like just understanding how business should work. And then real estate books, I recommended Crushing It just to understand how real estate works.
Absolutely.
Just a couple syndication books just to understand how to like value like a commercial property.
Yeah.
You can do it with 5 books. Like you can literally do it with 5 books.
Yeah, like you said, though, I mean, I think a lot of us, like, I've been investing 30 years, but once I happened upon Bigger Pockets like 10 years ago, I was like, holy shit, like these are all my people. Where were they? Because I was investing, there was no internet, we were going by courthouse lists, and then you see it, and now you see it develop, and you can meet a ton of people who are doing the same things by listening to podcasts, reading books, going to the events. And
so
then
much like free information on YouTube and social media
everywhere.
Right now.
Everywhere. But that's interesting too, because you said you had paid for courses, and I like to talk about that with people because I think there's a lot of bad courses out there, but I still think almost anybody, if you take a course, none of the courses are complete BS. If you just do what they say, you're not going to lose money on the course. Even the $50,000 ones, you won't lose money. It's all user error with the courses. If you're motivated and you take what it is, even if it is kind of like a little shiny object, you're still going to do okay. What did you get out of the paid courses? And now what would you tell people now about getting into paid courses? Because like you said, it's out there for free.
Yeah, paid courses, group coaching, mentors, all completely different. Sometimes they can touch on each other. Like sometimes you can purchase a coaching program that has all that other stuff. I'll plug BNB Formula because I coach for them as well. Like that, the idea of like going out there and creating my own course and doing that thing was there for a while. And then I had originally purchased that $1,000 course from BNB Formula when it was just a course. Now it's like a coaching program with 6,000-7,000 students in it. And I just teach like 1 to 2 hours a week for it. Actually just taught like right before we hopped on this call. The importance of that is incredible. I mean, books for sure will probably get you about like 30 to 50% of the way there. But when it comes to like a group coaching setting with being able to have access to mentors, that's where like that fills in that 30 to 60% gap. And just having like being able to have access to templates and just people is very important. A step above that, which is now is like on my end is like I have a one-on-one mentor. And that's something that I realize is very important just coming from the military is that I was spoiled with having very good leadership and I was blessed with very good leadership. But when I came out of that, I mean, books were sort of my mentors a little bit, like just by reading. But now that I've realized like just the importance of being able to have access to a one-on-one mentor, and people need to understand it's like a progression. Like if it started with $1,000 course and it might go up to like, I mean, some of my peers pay $120,000, $150,000, $200,000 a year to be able to have access to a one-on-one mentor. That doesn't change. So like that's always a part of you. Say like I'm finishing up my doctorate right now in business and then MBA. It's like, just because I'm finishing up my doctorate does not mean my education ends. And I think a lot of people mess that up too. So just the importance of a mentor and be able to bounce ideas off of someone that won't, I mean, I don't want to cuss here, but someone that's not going to bullshit you either. Like I've sent deals to my mentor and he was like, don't send this to me like ever. Like, this is terrible. Like you didn't underwrite this or anything. Like someone who's actually honest with you and can be tactful without obviously insulting you, but like just like being tactful and finding a mentor that's like can be honest with you is very, very important.
Yeah, I agree. I like so many things that you said there. One, I think that the books and podcasts will get you to that 30-40%, but they'll never get you to take action because you can't develop the confidence to take action just from books and podcasts. You have to have these one-on-one interactions where you can say, hey, that person's just like me and they have 30, short-term rentals. And you're like, wow, really? How did you do that? The camaraderie and connections through masterminds is always what actions. You can get it at like, if you go to BPCon, you make 100 contacts, that you're going to meet the people, but it's what you do afterwards with your follow-up that's really going to take you there.
I mean, yeah, this is where it really is all at. People complain a lot. I think there are a lot of like fake classes out there, but like I
100%.
said, I don't think that the information in the classes is that bad. It's just probably not worth it because you could find it for
Yeah, it's
free.
like you ever purchase like $1,000 course and then you find that similar information on YouTube and you're like,
Exactly.
well, I
Yeah,
just paid
it's
for
the same.
templates.
Yeah. But look, if you take action on it and it turns into something, and like you said, those masterminds keep getting higher and higher.
The power of the mastermind, I think, is even more important than the courses.
I agree.
Because you can tap directly into people. I say tapping into people's mistakes. Like, I mean, I've made millions of dollars worth of mistakes in the last 7 years. And it's like, if I had a mentor in the beginning to be like, no, like, don't do that. It's going to cost you like 200 grand or whatever. Like, being able to tap into a mastermind is very important because then you can just riff off each other as well.
Yeah. Well, the last thing that you said that I really loved as well is part of my makeup too. It's saying no. If a mentor doesn't say no, they're just flogging you for more courses later. They called me the deal killer in the beginning when I started mentoring people like direct one-on-one because they would do the same. They're like, "Hey, look at this deal I found. It's been on the market 260 days." I'm like, every investor that I know and every investor within 100 miles has all passed on the deal. Why do you think it's a good deal? It's a terrible deal. They're like,
there's an oil tank in the front yard. Yeah.
I just forgot, like you didn't uncover that. But saying no is important because that's how you save new investors from losing it. Because if you try it, especially with flipping, try to do a flip before you're ready, you're going to lose all your money. Development, forget it. You're not ready for that. It's hard. It's hard.
Absolutely.
I think what you said, you did a small, it was a small build, it was a development, but you picked areas that were accessible and price conscious and size conscious for what you were going to do, so that even if it wasn't a home run, it definitely wasn't going to be a loss.
Yeah, I mean, going back to that, we probably went like 20, 30 grand over budget on that. But like last year, that property cash flowed after debt service like 54 grand. So like I've been very careful to like slowly get bigger. I will say that this newest one is probably the biggest jump.
Yeah.
But yeah, just building in a safety net. And then, like I said, just having the mentors and the mastermind to be like, don't try to grow too quickly, too fast. It's like, it's going to happen if you just consistently put the work in.
Yeah. In terms of the short-term rental market and how you evaluate, I know we talked about how you got to Asheville, but how do you evaluate other markets? What data are you looking at? Are you looking at trends, or are you, focused on something else?
I love AirDNA for the minute stuff. It's difficult to look at. It's not an apples to apples. So let's compare it to multifamily. Multifamily, some of the metrics you're looking at is employment rate and just say like, what are the employers in that area, right? I don't like putting blanket statements on markets. There's a couple of strategies that I think are very popular and then just can fit you well. Number one, if you're in the States, investing anything close to like a national park or national forest, I think that's always going to do well because there's always going to be a built-in. During COVID, they saw record numbers because obviously everyone was just trapped here.
Yeah.
But like outside of that, there's always going to be millions of people going to these national parks and national forests. So I think that's a good strategy. I like to invest in mountain markets that aren't ski resorts. I don't necessarily like beaches too much. I don't have plans on investing in a beach market. I like mountain markets that aren't in the ski resort because they tend to be a little bit less seasonal. We cash flow really well during the winter because just like the summer, I would say brings people to the city and people are just staying on our properties. And then in the winter, the property itself becomes the experience.
Yeah.
Like I said. So it's like, I mean, nothing gets more iconic than like an A-frame or a cabin in the woods in the winter, right?
Yeah.
That's sort of what I gravitate towards. I said I want to do a desert market. That's going to be completely different because that is going to be seasonal. But I want to do it in like Sedona. And Sedona is one of the most popular desert markets in this country.
It also has the visibility because of the way that it looks. When you have the red rocks and something, you have a background that's going to turn it into something.
And again, that becomes the attraction. They're there as long as they can get some sort of food delivery or something to the property. You don't have to have like a restaurant component or anything like that.
Yeah, I like what you said about the winter change, though, because I agree. Ski properties don't make sense to me just because skiing's the thing. The property is not the thing. There's skiing and there's ski lodges there. You don't need to be the ski lodge. So those kind of like older
that would make more sense to be in the lodge than a short-term rental because you have access to it.
Exactly. Yeah, I feel like those kind of like old-fashioned-y ones do fine as ski because you're not there. You're skiing the whole day and then you get in a bed. It's
right. Exactly.
Everything else is at
you
the
can
resort.
Walk downstairs in your pajamas and go eat something. Like you can't do that in a vacation rental, like in a ski resort.
Yeah. So, I mean, if there's investors, obviously there's investors listening, but if they haven't got into the short-term rental market and are interested in getting in some way, what's one thing that we haven't talked about that you think could help them kind of manage their expectations about doing it?
Yeah, I'll plug myself in at the end. But on one side, the easiest way to get into short-term rentals, if you have the time to manage your properties, is honestly, if you can find a good deal, it's become harder, but rental arbitrage is on the vacation rental side is the fastest way to get into any type of real estate asset, single family, multi, that is the fastest way to start cash flowing as long as you underwrite the property properly. It's just, if you don't have the time to put these systems in place that we talked about, because it's not easy to do it. It's easy to put a property on Airbnb. You can do it tonight with your neighbor's property, but it's putting these systems in place that will probably take you like 3 to 6 months, especially building out a direct booking site. No matter who you're using, it's going to take you a while. If you're looking to get into it and you don't want to put those systems in outside of investing with, there's a lot of funds. We have a fund, but outside of that is just relying on these local property managers. When I say local property managers, make sure you're working with a manager that's been in the market before VRBO and Airbnb.
Great point.
They've understood the progression of vacation rentals. They probably understood direct bookings when it was their entire business. And we have done that. That was one thing we actually did not talk about is my business in the last 3 months has evolved into more of a hybrid model where I'm focused on strategy in these larger properties. And then the day-to-day operations is delegated to a local manager that does a way better job than I do. And they have over 160 properties in this market. So if you don't have the time to put those systems in place, I'd recommend finding a manager that has 100 plus properties in your area, and they can help you underwrite these properties. If you're looking to purchase.
Yeah, I think those managers,
it's going to be their headache if they tell you the wrong thing. So they're incentivized not to tell you the wrong thing. They're going to tell you flat out if the property's not going to do well because they're going to have to manage it.
Yeah, and have you found? I feel like those local managers are also the ones who can find you more properties well before they hit any market or anything because they're managing.
A lot of times it'll be their clients that are selling.
Exactly. That's a funnel right there. They say oh, you're just going to trade off. The prices, everything's fair. The management. They're going to keep the management. So they don't lose anything.
That was another big thing was talking to banks. The bank didn't like that I was the partner and the operator of the property. Again, this is we can go another hour on this topic alone, but it's the fact that I put a manager on these properties. It helps the resale because when it comes to listing the property, it's a way different conversation to go, the seller is, or the owner is the management company compared to saying the management company is already in place and it's just an easy transition for you just how to purchase the property. So it helps on that end as well. And talking to banks,
it's more business-like,
exactly.
Because you have a business running and then you're getting that management's running, like you said, just no big deal. Trade the property management. We already know the metrics. We can see the metrics so they know what it's worth.
A lender would be looking at my numbers and they're like, why is your management fee 0%? I'm like, it's because I'm the manager. And they're like, well, we're still going to put 20 to 25% in there just to underwrite it. I'm like, okay, might as well just go get a manager if they're underwriting the property like that.
I agree completely. So, well, tell us more about you, the companies, where to find you, because I think that's important. You've just rained down a ton of information. People are going to want to find, where they can find you. Your YouTube channel is Alex Builds, right?
Yeah, I haven't been as active on that. I'm more active on LinkedIn and the Bigger Pockets blog. Just stay away from the comment section. It's just a nightmare in there.
Everything is. I've been on Bigger Pockets 10 years.
I tried to respond to a couple of people to help them out. I've written I think over 10 articles for them now. Just avoid those comment section. If you guys are interested in the Treehouse community, we're in the middle of the raise right now. We're about halfway through the raise. And that's going to be openatlas.investments. I'll send you the link. I'm sure we'll link it somewhere in the show notes. But Open Atlas, we literally built it's practically a direct booking website, but it's an entire website just for this deal for our investors to easily get access to me and my team.
Yeah, awesome. That one sounds interesting. I'm going to contact you about that one.
Yeah,
and last thing, do you think that short-term rentals and what we're calling this hospitality business is something that someone can, like you, go in as a first investment? Everybody's obsessed with house hacking and multifamily, but that doesn't work for everybody. Is this a viable alternative if you do it the right way?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, it's just with anything. I mean, people are saying that long-term is not profitable anymore. It is. It's just understanding the 1 year KPIs, your systems. Don't just throw it on Airbnb and expect it to do well. I think those are gone are the days that most properties are not going to do well just on Airbnb alone. And then if you don't have some sort of support system behind you in terms of a mentor, if you don't have that, your freaking property manager that you find can act as your mentor. So.
Yeah. Awesome, man. Well, this has been a great learning episode. We're going to stay in touch because I just love the idea of the treehouse community. I think it's like exactly what we talked about. It's something that's never going to get old, just like looking at a mountain.
I brought the top drone people in the world that like consult with DJI. I brought the top vacation rental influencers in the country out here to like film everything. We put them up at the property for like 4 days, and we just shot a beautiful investor video that it's crazy. 4 days, it's 15 minutes. Like we've put 4 days into filming. So, and that's on the investor website as well.
Yeah. But even before we hop off, that's a last great tidbit. I mean, when you have something large scale, Airbnb, short-term rentals, any of these hospitality things, bringing in those influencers is huge. You just let them stay for free. They're going to pump it out on social media. It's going to be a huge win. And it's a win-win for everyone.
All that traffic is pushed directly back to the direct booking site. And then you just created this massive circle.
Yeah. And that's what we said in the middle. I think the better that you are in kind of having a hub site, having your direct booking, also using the portals for what they're worth, which is that vetting up front, you can create a sustainable business where, again, like you said, one of the best points of this whole show, don't call it an Airbnb, because then you're giving power to it. Nothing wrong with Airbnb. They've helped a lot of us in short-term rentals, but like that's a company. You're not working for them. You're using them, like you said, as advertisement for your property. That's a great takeaway.
Yeah, absolutely. And then I want to leave with one thing too.
Yeah.
We talked about the email list. Another email list is technically Instagram accounts as well. Like this property that we're taking out was like 45,000 Instagram followers organically. When you're building a list like that, like we purchased a property this year that came with like an email list of 3,500 previous guests, and it was across 7 properties. That's a business asset. You're building an email list that you can then hand over to another manager or another owner. That just increases the value of the property. It's a little bit hard to quantify it, but it definitely makes the property way more marketable.
Yeah. And I think that's a type of thing that you can't, like you said, can't quantify the ROI, because you could put those 3,500 into a list. They like short-term rentals. They like vacations. So you can start sending them when you build out other properties in different areas. They may take a look. You may never even connect the dots. You probably can in the back end, but there's a lot of that. Like social media is so important because you may not know that someone's been following the rental for a year. They're obsessed with it.
And or then following you for a year. Yeah.
Right. And then you get a direct booking and you're like, oh, it came from Instagram, but maybe it came from one thing on YouTube that led them to that. And then they direct book, avoided Airbnb. And that's why having all of those marketing pieces like you're doing, making sure that it's high-end video, that's going to get people in. And then you still have to back it up with the experience, which I think is really important with what you're doing.
Yeah, absolutely.
Awesome, man. Well, it's been a pleasure. I know we're going to stay in touch because this was a great show, but I really appreciate you coming on.
Oh, thanks for having me on, man. That was fun.
Yeah, appreciate it. That was Alex Jarbo. I'm Jonathan Green. This was episode 74 of Zen and the Art of Real Estate Investing, with a little power outage in the middle, but we powered right through. We'll see you next week. I hope you enjoyed that episode of Zen and the Art of Real Estate Investing with me, Jonathan Green. And I just want to remind you, and this is always an uncomfortable part, I don't want you to think that I'm begging for you to like, subscribe, follow, do whatever you have to do for the podcast, leave a 5-star review. But if you like the podcast and you think it adds value in the real estate investing sphere, then just do me a personal favor. Like the podcast, follow it, share it when you can with your friends, and be so kind as to write a 5-star review if you believe it deserves a 5-star review up against what else is out there. I would really appreciate it, and I hope you keep listening.